How's it going, folks? It's Rob here. I thought I'd do a little bit of an update on the front yard veggie patch. I've had a number of people ask how the asparagus and bananas and that sort of thing are going. So even though it's still a little bit of a construction zone here, I am hooking into it today, just trying to tidy it up a bit and do a little bit of maintenance on the asparagus before spring hits. So I'll give you a bit of a look at a few things that I've found and a plant that I've killed. So let's get into it. This asparagus here is the reason I came out this morning. We're coming towards the end of winter. In fact, today's supposed to be 29 degrees Celsius. So things are definitely warming up here. And I wanted to cut back the old asparagus fronds and turn them into a bit of a mulch to go over the top of the soil after I feed it up with some compost. For the time being, we want to keep this bed here, and this bed here productive. I'll show you what's going on in there in a tick. And the rest of the garden beds out the front, we'll pretty much will just let them go for the time being with minimal maintenance. Now, the reason being is I want to pull these garden beds out because we're having problems with weed trees pop up the back. We have a Chinese celtis there, and even though they've died back a bit, we have some crepe myrtle, and they're growing out through the retaining wall behind the bed. So what I need to do is remove all these beds, kill off the weed trees and start again. But with everything we have on at the moment, other bits of renovation, and I want to tackle the aquaponics, these garden beds can just stay as is for the time being. So I will get to these later on today. Something else I wanted to show you though is the Yacon, or Peruvian ground apple. It started to shoot again. We've also got a few feral sweet potatoes in here, but yeah, the Yacon started to shoot again. I'm pretty happy about that. I've taken out one little rhizome just over here. Actually, there's a couple on there, and they'll be going into a root pouch out the back. The best crop we ever had of these guys came from a wicking barrel. So they were just growing in a 100 litre, I think it's around about a 25 gallon wicking barrel. So with the Yacon, I haven't dug down to see what the tubers are like. This one here, as you can see, is a bit rotten, so it's turning into compost worm food. I'm not too worried about getting a yield off of these guys this season. We'll worry about them next year. The sweet potatoes, they just went feral in this bed. We've taken out a few small ones, and I think there's a few other larger ones up the back there. But this is the largest one I've found to date. These are supposed to be a Hawaiian sunshine purple variety. They just went feral in this bed. So we've actually cut back dramatically the amount of carbs we eat. So we're not really growing these guys for the tubers. This will be gifted to a family or friend. We pretty much all growing them for the greens at the moment. So there will be a bit of a yield from here, but I don't think it's going to be a massive one. Over in this bed here, I've collected a few bits and pieces of the tubers. One was a casualty of the fork, but you get that. This bed here was just let go fallow while we were out of the house, so all it had was a volunteer sweet potato grow through it and some lucerne that is held on. I think there were a couple of amaranth in here as well. And the bed next to it just had some volunteer amaranth, red amaranth in it. Actually made quite a beautiful display over the top of the fence when she was in full bloom, but those stalks had died off. You can see one struggling volunteer that's a little bit late to the show. The rest of the plants in this bed were pretty much all just volunteer sweet potato. They've grown over. I'm actually going to put the fork down there and do a little bit of a harvest in this bed. This bed was pretty well fed up before the sweet potato grew in here, so you never know. Looking at the way the ground sort of mounded up towards the center, I'm thinking there might be a few spuds in there. The other plant that's growing over the top of this from the next bed is Warragul Greens, and as you can see, she's chockers with seeds. And I get a lot of people asking lately whether they can buy certain seeds off us, so I'm thinking about selling a couple of bits and pieces. So mainly to the Aussies. Sorry guys, I'm not too sure about the legalities of sending them overseas, but these will be one of them, as well as the sunshine chilies and maybe some galangal, which I harvested the other day as well. The next bed over is the Warragul green bed, but as you can see, we have some sweet potato vine growing through here as well. I'm going to try and weed this out because once the roots get down into the soil, you're pretty much all stuffed. They're going to continually shoot in the same bed over and over again. And just up the end here, we had a couple of beds I let go fallow, as you can see. Just using this area here as a bit of a storage from the renovation. So yeah, that's how the wicking beds along the front have gone. Now for some bad news. I killed my finger lime. We got very few fruit off it, and whilst we were moving and doing the final bits and pieces to move into the house, I forgot to water it for about 2.5, 3 weeks, and it's pretty much all knocked it on the head. I did give it a water through the week. It soaked up all the water, but I haven't seen any change in the actual greenery. So unfortunately, I've killed a plant. It does happen, but I'm just, really kicking myself because it didn't have to happen. I just needed to pay a bit more attention, but unfortunately it was elsewhere. The fig, on the other hand, it may not look it, but it is doing all right. It's getting some new growth points on there, and the wood is still green. So hopefully we'll start to see some leaves on that, especially now things are starting to warm up. And the good old kaffir lime, yeah, it hung on through the whole thing. No issues with that. It does need a bit of a prune back. You can see a bit of it did die off, and we also had some hawk moth caterpillars on here devour a couple of branches worth of leaves as well, but yeah, she'll bounce back fine. Luckily with this one, we're only after the leaves for curries and bits and pieces. This plant here will end up going out the back. Bianca and I have been over the design for the backyard, and we know where we're going to be popping a couple of citrus. Might even try and turn it into a 3 or 4 types of citrus on one rootstock. So what I might do now is I'm going to have to try and work around this handrail because I don't want to damage the Warragul Green branches here. And yeah, we'll try and hook in and see how many sweet potatoes we can find. So I am filming this on my phone, folks, so hopefully it'll all be in focus. I'll just try and move back some of this Warragul Green back into its own bed. Oh, that's a nice big branch. I dare say we're going to end up with little baby Warragul Greens pop up in this bed as well, because I am seeing a couple of seeds down the bottom here. It's an old amaranth stem. As I said, this bed was fed up, and there is a definite raise in the middle here. So I'll just pull out these vines just off the surface and hopefully not knock over the camera. So I don't want to pull my phone over. So use some secateurs to cut the vines going that way. Oops, already pulled out a small tater. So this soil, because it was fed up and kept nice and healthy, should be easy enough just to dig through here by hand and get a lot of these out, because I don't really want to use the fork and damage too many. There we go. Look at that. How easy is that, hey? So I fed this bed up with a 25 litre bag of my favourite compost from the local hardware store, and just made sure that I watered it or filled the bed up a lot more regularly than the finger lime, I must say. And yeah, it seems to have done the trick. I have let it dry out over the last couple of weeks, as I mentioned, so a lot of the vine has died back, but by the look of this, most of the growth was already on there. Oh, there's some right down deep as well. I'm breaking off. Might have to use the garden fork for those guys. Kira's also got a friend coming around today, so I might send some of these back to her family. Oh, look, there's a nice one. Oop, I missed some more over here. So there we go, that's what we've got just from the top, and not a bad yield. Normally I'd pop all these guys into a nice cane basket, but the galangal is in the basket after harvesting it. So laundry basket will have to do. Oh, I just broke one off then. We'll get him with the fork. Now, for the deep ones. It's going to be a bit hard with this handrail here, but I'll try my best. Yeah, see, as you can see, this is dried right out. Hopefully I haven't damaged the microbe population and the worms in there too much. I find the worms tend to go down to the lower levels in these wicking beds when they dry out a bit. And there's one. So I like to practice what's called progressive harvesting, or well, that's with things like lettuce and that, and that's when you pick the leaves, just what you need for the meal, leave the rest on the plant to grow, and yeah, you can extend the life of the plant and its production that way. With root crops, we call it bandicooting. Bandicoot is a small marsupial here in Australia, and they dig down for their supper, mainly grubs and things like that. So we come along and bandicoot out what we need, and that's pretty much all it. So in the case of these sweet potatoes, because we've cut back on the amount of carbs, we don't have probably one of these small potatoes between the two of us, the anchor and myself. Yeah, there's no point just bandicooting them out because most of them would rot in the garden before we get a chance to hook into them. Just found a nice little cluster of small ones here. This one goes fairly deep. There we go. Oh, I've still broken a bit off. He must go down all the way into the reservoir. Not a huge amount. There's a few extra to throw in the pot to share around. So there we go, folks. Not a bad little harvest for not trying to do anything. And there, as I said, there's also the others, that one there, and a few more I could probably dig around and get out from this bed here. I better move the roots back into the shade. Probably get a few more out of here, but I don't want to disturb the yacon too much. I'll have a little bit of a dig around, see what I come up with, and I'll put a picture at the end. Just a little bit of a look at how bad the front yard looks. Just to run through some of the plans, that big pile of soil there will be used to terrace out the front area here, and hopefully we're going to be able to park 2 cars here comfortably. So when we have people to come around to do small workshops or maybe just check out the garden, there'll be somewhere off-road for them to park. And we've also, as you can see, we've reclaimed, we've saved parts of the fence there, and we've got sections of the battens that were underneath the house stored over there and down the side of the house. So now the loud 4-wheel drives have passed, those battens will be used just to clad the outside of these IBCs just to pretty them up. Once we pull them out, get rid of all the weed trees down the back there and set them all up again. And yeah, they'll probably be set up as one big wicking system rather than in individual beds next time around. Just to let you folks know, I do have a couple of clips in the bag that you will see after this one. I just need to edit them. This one will just be easier as it's a walkthrough. I have a Warragul Harvest from the Aquaponics, and also run through some of the issues I've had with the roots, and also another one on the coffee processing. The coffee is still being processed. It's out the back deck at the moment drying, so hopefully those clips will be up in the next week or two. So I do hope you've enjoyed this little bit of a look at an impromptu harvest of the volunteer sweet potatoes. Once again, really do need to thank you all for coming along and supporting the channel. You folks over on Subscribestar, the YouTube membership platform, thank you very much to you folks as well. I really do appreciate the ongoing friendships and support you guys have offered. Also too, super contributors, please check them out down in the description below. There's links to their websites and their Facebook pages. It'd be great if you could go over and visit them. But I'm pretty much all going to sign off now. I've got to go and mulch the asparagus so I can add it in as B-roll later. So have a top one, folks. Cheers. So here's a quick look at this first bed harvest. The nice big one that you saw before with a split in it. One that's been in there far too long. So I'd say he's been in there for a season or two. A couple of broken and split ones, some nice small ones. And over here we have some yacon. Now that truck's passed, this little section of yacon rhizome, I'll be gifting that to some friends of ours. And these sections of root here, Kira and her mate can chow down on them, see what they think. So there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed the clip, and take it easy.